Have you ever thought about fruit? Some has seeds on the inside, and some has seeds on the outside. I don't know why that is. I don't make the rules. I just follow them. And like fruit, some people wear their hearts on their sleeves, on the outside, for all to see. What they really want is for you to like them. But you don't, because they're obnoxious. This is SoundMind, a podcast about music, philosophy, and the relationship between the two. With me here today is Stevie D. I'm Justin Haas. Let's enter the zone.
Into the zone. The ozone.
I almost said the gazebo zone.
Pure oxygen.
But that's a H3 thing, so I can't steal that.
Well,
but it is great. And then they call their fans gazeboys.
That's pretty creative.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into this thing. We
Yeah.
got deep waters to explore.
Depths. Deep depths.
Of history. And by history, I mean shallow and brief. Limited.
Personal history.
To our years of existence.
It's like instead of being like a outdoor swimming pool, it's more like a kiddie pool that someone peed in. It's kind of like, not that great.
Somebody peed in.
Pothole someone peed in. Not that great. If you compare them, you're like, okay, all right.
But pretty awesome still.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today is discuss top 10 most influential albums of our lifetime.
Yes. How those albums influenced us personally, influenced our style, our creative process, the way we write music, the way we listen to music. Yeah. At first, I was thinking we should do top 10 songs, but then I was like, oh, no. Albums. So, there we go.
Right.
Well, first off, do we have any updates? Because I feel like it's just been a blink of an eye, and we have returned. I don't know. Not much has happened in my life.
Yeah. My kids are killing it at basketball.
Dope.
Yeah. I think we're 0 for 4.
Oh.
I mean, sorry, 0 for 4. 4-0.
I know what you meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't say we're killing it. You would say, yeah.
First place losers.
We're getting killed.
100%.
That's
Consistency.
That's what you would have said. We're getting killed.
Right.
By the killers.
So, yeah. They're killing it at basketball. Been busy in the studio working, grinding. Got some new toys. Some new microphones, as you were so nicely demonstrating.
Right here in front of me.
The Shure.
For sure.
Yeah, SM7.
Yeah, we both gushed over this microphone a little bit because I see metal artists using it all the time for really harsh vocals. So
yeah,
I couldn't wait to into it.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as far as updates go, not a whole lot. I mean, behind the scenes, I don't really know how much, we share with the audience, but I feel like I want to. So we haven't even got to touch base with you guys yet.
Right.
We've been storing up these videos, and we're getting ready to release the first few podcasts. But in the background right now, man, we got artwork going.
Yep.
We've got jingle going.
We got some jingle.
And you are going to jangle when you hear our jingle.
Jingle to the jangle.
Like,
or jangle to the jingle. Yeah.
SoundMind.
What?
So, that's all I got for update, man. There's probably more.
Yeah,
but
I think I just work. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I just work. I go home, sleep. If I have time, I do something besides sleep, but usually I don't. So I don't.
This is really fun.
Yeah.
Friday mornings, we're here recording this.
Yes,
and
sir.
Wednesdays, we're going to go live. Not just when we post the first few, but actually have some live sessions.
I would love
and
that.
we weren't lying in the beginning. We will have some artists being interviewed at some point in here.
Yeah, it turns out some musicians are intimidated at the concept of talking in front of a microphone. Like they can sing in a microphone just fine, But when you put them on the spot and you're like, I have personal questions for you, they're like,
I'm gonna bow out.
I'm not. Yeah, so we have some guys that are interested, definitely, and they want to do it. But yeah, they'll kind of trying to. It feels like we're grooming some of them.
Yeah.
Like, come into my lair.
Right. As we've kind of been grooming ourselves and the environment and the camera.
Enter the van. There's candy and puppies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I say enter the van. I say okay. I am grooming myself. This is awkward. Okay, moving on. No update there.
Yeah. So yeah, life's happening. Oh, you're mixing the tracks we recorded, which we talked about.
Yes.
That's going well.
Yes.
But besides that, yeah, I got nothing. So,
moving on.
That said, let us enter the realm. I can't say gazebo realm. No. That's still too similar.
I felt it though.
Yeah.
It should have came with a sound effect of some kind.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll add that later.
In post. We don't. Yeah, probably not gonna do that.
I think I will. I actually.
Okay. Is it like a whip sound?
Yeah. Yeah, you can't make the whip sound. I'm gonna.
It was like an example whip sound. So I was thinking we'd start with our honorable mentions because I know we both have some.
Okay.
Let's start with yours because I'm curious as to what yours are.
So you want me to just give you all 5, or?
Yeah.
I have 5 honorable mentions.
Yeah, I have around the same, but I think just kind of, just kind of get them out there.
Yep.
Brief explanation.
Yes. Okay. Honorable mentions. So Green Day, Dookie.
Classic.
Yes. Very, very. That almost made my top 10 list. It was hard to kind of take it off, but 6th grade, I think I was in when that came out.
Nice. And
it's funny because I don't like punk. Punk is, and no offense to anybody who loves punk, I love all music that speaks to you. Punk, the genre of punk is one of those that it just has never really appealed to me, other than 6th grade, Dookie comes out. And I think the lyrics in that, and 6th grade is such an awkward time and age for kids growing up, and punk music is kind of awkward.
Yeah.
And I don't really know, but
it's like very angsty.
Yeah. So it was huge album.
Yeah.
I actually, it was one of the ones that I had to buy several times because it quit working because I played it so much. So, yeah,
That's
definitely.
funny.
That's an honorable mention.
Awesome.
This one was hard to take off my list. Did I take that one off my list? Ooh, that one's tough. Collective Soul, 1995. It was their self-named album. So, it's just Collective Soul. It came out in 95.
Yeah. They got some good stuff.
Yeah, it was really good. It was just a time when I think I was thinking deeper as a teenager, and a lot of the lyrics in that were like self-reflective type of lyrics and content in the music, so that spoke a lot to me. Tool, Under Oath, or not Under Oath, I'm saying Under Oath because I've been listening to some of their stuff. Undertow
by Tool.
Undertow.
I don't know if I know that album, but I know Tool to some degree.
Yeah, it's one of their first, I'd say maybe their 3rd or 4th album, but right there in the beginning, and just a whole Tool, just a whole different sound. I never heard it before. Really moody, but also really driven in places.
Yeah,
and I really I liked a lot the vocal. What's his name?
Flip. I don't even remember, dude. I'm blanking.
I want to say...
Is his name Peter?
He has a weird name.
The name that's popping up is Peter Mayhew, and I know that's wrong.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, which is funny because it's... I've said it a million times. Anyway, his vocal style and approach to vocals, and you didn't always know what he was saying, but anyway, very dark, very moody, as I was at that age.
And what was cool is he didn't care if you understood what he was saying.
Right.
Like, it was like...
Yeah, the music spoke as much as the lyrics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Master P, Ghetto Dope. No
classic.
limit soldiers. Make them say, okay. Now some of you guys know what I'm saying, and a bunch of you are like, what is he talking
Yeah,
about?
I'm blanking on that one.
So, brief little history.
Yeah.
So I got to go there. When I was a teenager, I was really looking for answers and trying to find my identity, which I think a lot of teenagers are.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they have parents at home that help them in that journey. I had a mom, worked a lot, but dad wasn't around. So, unfortunately, like I found a identity in trying to be a hoodlum, So I started dealing drugs and messing with drugs, and I think I've shared some of this before in brief in some of the other episodes.
Yeah.
So this album, I was already into hip hop, but it just was dropped at the worst, perfect time to be the worst influence at the right moment, and so and No Limit Soldiers for hip hop, it kind of took over the industry for like the next, I don't know, I'd say 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
There was a lot of hip hop coming out, but, No Limit, they were releasing artists. I mean, people that, it's like, oh, cousin, come over, we'll make you some beats and you can just on a track and probably sell, 10,000 copies at least. So they were pulling everybody in, and a lot of it was garbage. Content-wise, it was all garbage. But anyway, nevertheless, honorable mention for being an influence in my life, whether good or bad. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. One of the best albums ever made, probably.
Yeah.
Would be on a lot of top 10 lists of a lot of people.
So to pause you for a second,
Yes.
maybe this should be a whole episode, but is Dark Side of the Moon better or is The Wall better?
I am a Dark Side of the Moon guy.
You're on that side of the wall.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but I just want to throw that out there because
I love
that's
The
a
Wall,
debate.
though.
Yeah,
I love The Wall.
Me too. I love them both. They're like my children. I love them equally. But my question is, which one is better than the other one?
Yeah.
And I know that's a question every parent asks about their children. So
Yeah, and I would say Dark Side of the Moon. Or
we'll come back.
Yeah, they're great in different ways, like my children.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so was that Green Day, Collective Soul, Tool, Master P, Pink Floyd? Those are my honorable mentions.
Awesome.
I could go on all day with those.
Oh yeah, so could I. All right, so my honorable mentions may betray me to some degree because a lot of these are albums by artists that are on my top 10. But two Yes albums, 90125, and I don't remember the name of it, but the album with the song Roundabout on it. Do you know that song? They have that bass track that's just like boom bump 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 bump. I'll have to pull it up.
I might, but
it turns out you can't sing bass very well.
yeah.
As it turns out. But anyway, so that album and 90125 were some of my first albums that I listened to consistently. And I know it's like, I don't know the names of albums very well, but I have like the covers in my mind. And I couldn't remember the name of the one with Roundabout, and I probably should have just Googled it. But yeah, those are both great. By the band Yes. I don't even know if I said that.
You did.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are great albums. Really early on. I have two Under Oath albums actually. Lost in the Sound of Separation and Disambiguation. So Lost in the Sound of Separation, I think is Under Oath's best album. That is not a popular opinion. But the reason I say that is it's so angsty. Like people like there are two other albums of theirs that everybody say are their best. But this one is just so it's more musically out there. It's more doom and gloom. It seems more real. Like more of that. And if you kind of look at the history of the band, what was happening was there was a lot of crises happening in terms like within the band. The drummer was having like hypochondriac stuff happen, and every time they went to a new city when they were touring, he would have to find out where the closest hospital was to their hotel room because he was like, in case something happens, I need to drive there, or at least like know how fast it's gonna take to get there.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he was doing that. I think Spencer Chamberlain was addicted to heroin at the time, and a lot of his songs are about that, like how he was struggling because
Is he the lead vocalist?
Yeah, so he was a Christian at the time, and he was struggling with that. But anyway, so I love that album. I think it's and it's musically, I think it has the best flow. But anyway, so Lost in the Sound of Separation and Disambiguation. A lot of people don't like that one because their drummer left and they had a new drummer. But I think this new drummer that they had, he used to be in Norma Jean. I don't remember his name, but he has some really cool stuff to throw down. And he's a really unique drummer. He has a cool style. And so I like that album. They mixed it differently. I think it was their first album to drop C. That might be wrong. I think actually Lost in the Sound was also in drop C, but it had a thicker sound. It was more like, yeah, very, very, also very doom and gloom. I like that a lot. And then This Type of Thinking by Chevelle. That was one of the first albums I had that was really riff based. Like a lot of metal or hard rock now is very riff based. Like you hear a cool riff in the beginning of the song and then it pops up in different parts, and that's kind of like the hook, you know. So it like they substituted a vocal hook for a guitar hook basically. So it kind of serves that purpose. But it's a guitar, and it's typically really low because I mean Chevelle, like they play in like most of their albums they go down to like drop A and like drop G, which is retardedly low. Actually, I don't know about drop G, but whatever. This Type of Thinking was one of their earlier albums. I think it was their third, and they were hitting their groove. I think the album before was they were signed to a Christian label. And it was pretty mainstream. It was pretty poppy, but This Type of Thinking was more out there, and I liked that about it. And it has one of my favorite songs by them. It's called Vitamin R. Yeah, and I like their lyrics. They're very strange. So that one, I would say, really influenced how out there my lyrics are. Because I was like, well, if they can go like that far out there, I can go a little bit more out there. Right. Like I wouldn't say I'm as out there as they are, but. And then my last honorable mention is Whorehound by The Dead Weather. As I've said previously, big fan of Jack White. Whorehound was an interesting marriage of like rock, blues, and I don't even know. They have this song called Cut Like a Buffalo. The main lyric in it is, you know, I look like a woman, but I cut like a buffalo.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't really care.
We could probably just dissect that next week.
Yeah, man. That'd be fun, actually. Buffalo. Just to pull up a song and just digest the lyrics. That'd be a cool thing to do. Yeah. Anyway, so those are my honorable mentions. So do you want to just start with your
list?
Yeah, start with your list.
You want to go some back and forth, maybe, and just
like you do one, I do one.
Yeah,
let's do that.
I'm not quite sure what order to go in here. All these are influential in my life for different reasons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whatever. I'm going to improv it.
Yeah, man.
I'm going to start by going first two.
Yeah.
Same time period. Anyway, young kid. I started being influenced by music that I am aware of at the age of 3, 4 years old. I'm sure I was influenced by it before then, you know, my parents listening, but that I can remember. 2 movies that were huge in my life, and why my first 2 that I'm going to mention, and the first 2 that impacted me, are soundtracks. The movie Grease and the soundtrack, and the movie La Bamba, which is a biopic about the artist Richie Valens. Who was Richie Valenzuela. He was. Do you know who he is?
No clue.
He is. It's around the era of Buddy Holly, and you know, prior to Elvis, I think. But you know, anyway, similar time. He was a Hispanic rock artist that emerged and basically took. You know, La Bamba was a like a traditional Hispanic mariachi, if I'm not mistaken, kind of sounding song, and he took it and made it 50s rock. And anyway, became a superstar. Came from nothing, became a superstar. And so the story of the movie compelled me, right? Rags to riches, even as a 4-year-old. I don't know how that's possible, but it is. Old soul, I've been told. But anyway, so Rags to Riches, the storyline was inspiring. The music, loved it. And Grease, very similar. I just fell in love with the music, the choreography, the dancing, all of it. As a kid, those were two of my favorite movies. I always want to watch them. Ended up getting a little guitar, and the little neighbor girls would come over and be like, "Can Stevie sing us a song?" And I would go,
"Yes,
La
ladies."
Bamba. Oh, no, that's a different. Hey, Donna. That's the Hey, Donna.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for that. I just haven't seen that movie in about 25 years.
Oh, is that all?
But still.
Yeah.
In my soul.
Right there in the feels.
So, yep, Grease soundtrack, La Bamba.
Okay. So, I'm doing my list kind of the reverse of the way that you started, but basically, to me, a lot of my least influential, a lot of them anyways, this isn't true for all of them, but a lot of my least influential were more recent.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with least influential. Not that that's bad, but and this album is influential musically, but also the story kind of behind the album, like how they wrote it, how they recorded it. The process for putting all the pieces together was not very typical. I think it was crowdfunded, that kind of thing, and it has a great sound. I really like it. So Knives to the Future by Project 86. I don't know how well known the band is, but yes, Knives to the Future it's an interesting album because every song is very different. Like, extremely so. They have a kind of a signature style that they kind of put that in the back seat to some degree for this album because it's I don't know why, but they kind of were approaching it from more of a narrative perspective, and so each song is very different and it kind of progresses. So the first track, you get this impression that a person dies and then enters the afterlife. And so the album is like a tour of this journey through the afterlife. And it's really interesting. And it's very evocative of like Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno. Just in the sense of it's almost like he's traveling through the afterlife and experiencing these different stories, and and the way it all comes together is very cool. I like the guitarist, I like the drummer, I like how they piece everything together. The vocalist has a very unique style, and to me, all of those things, what it amounted to was these guys kind of escaped the the music production machine, and they produced this album pretty cheap, and it sounds really good, and they did a great job, and I really like it. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion. Like, I don't know how well known this album is. I don't know if it's people's favorite, but it's one of my favorites, so I don't really care.
It's top 10 most influential. It could sound like crap, really. I mean,
it influenced me so much.
Right. That's awesome. I'd like to hear the production on that.
Sweet.
Okay, so moving on. I gave you 2. Let's see. What do I want to go next?
But you had 11, right? You cheated a little bit.
What? Who's counting? Yeah, okay. I'm going to skip around my list, but and I'm putting 2 albums into one. Okay. Let's see. I don't even know how old I was. I want to say 6, 7 when I got introduced to Thriller, Michael Jackson, Thriller, and then Bad. I'm going to lump Bad into that. That was, I think I was 8 or 9 when that came out. But I was introduced to Thriller. Bad, it seemed like in my memory, like Bad came out very quickly after I was introduced to Thriller.
Yeah.
And so obviously huge pop records for the industry, but as a kid, I just loved it. Loved the beat, loved the music, loved watching Michael Jackson dance, fell in love with dancing and watching him dance, and just became a fan of even watching choreography and other people dance. Probably Grease played a part in that, I'm sure. But yeah, those were huge. I mean, still to this day, I'm really, really big Michael Jackson fan.
Yeah. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
I think it's a reasonable thing to say.
Yeah, he took over. I mean, he took over the pop industry.
All right, so my number 9 may be surprising. It's going to be a surprise. Get Behind Me, Satan.
Get Behind Me.
By the White Stripes. Not my favorite album of theirs, by any means. I was in love with the stripped back style. I don't know if you're familiar with White Stripes, but
somewhat, yeah.
So I listened to their stuff pretty chronologically. I started with the first album, listened to them. I think they were already out. The first 2 or 3 were already out by the time I started listening to them. And then Get Behind Me, Satan came out, and I bought it new. And I was disappointed, and a lot of people were, because the songwriting is completely different. It's like there's a lot of songs that are piano. There's a lot of songs that are just, he's like, you know what? I'm going to go for more production. I'm going to do more instruments. And even though we can't really do it live, I'm just going to do an album. And so the whole album is very un-White Stripesy. But as I got older, and I kind of kept returning to the album every once in a while, I don't know, it definitely influenced my perspectives, because I learned guitar really young, and I played guitar, and I switched to electric guitar as soon as my parents would let me. And to me, electric guitar was like the instrument. So hearing White Stripes was like the 2 best instruments are playing at the same time. Like, what else do you need? The White Stripes was in there doing something different than what I had assumed, right? So I'm listening to it, and it's raw in a different way. It's not aggressive or as aggressive. There weren't a whole lot of songs on that album that were anywhere close to being as rock forward, but they still got a lot of emotion across. And so to me, it was kind of a return to this idea that multi-instrumentalism is better, right? Having more instruments means more emotional, I don't know, more possibilities. Maybe that's the way to put it.
More ways to articulate the emotion.
Right. And so it's not my favorite album by them, but it is influential in the sense that as I was following their career, they kind of threw me for a loop. And so, I would say that in and of itself was worthwhile. So.
Wow. That's cool. Let's see. Where do I go now? Aerosmith, Big Ones.
Oh.
Yeah. An amazing album.
There's a lot more rock on this than I thought there was going to be, honestly.
Yeah, we'll get into some other stuff, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, a lot of rock in the early going. Aerosmith, Big Ones. I want to say I was about 9 or 10, so let's see, that would have been, I ain't going to try to do the math, but early 90s. I guess I am trying to do the math. Early 90s, mid 90s, somewhere in there. And this one was funny, all right? So I met this girl, and I thought she was really cute and funny, and I liked her a lot. And she was a gigantic Aerosmith fan.
Nice.
And she used to sing Crazy a lot. And so that's kind of what introduced me to it. And I remember I really liked her, and then she was going to move away, and I started listening to Aerosmith, Big Ones, and, I'm just this little kid. I don't even know what's happening, and I'd be listening and crying in my bed, like, oh my God, she's moving. And anyway, that was kind of stupid, but great album. That's one of the first ones that I can remember listening to and not skipping tracks. Just on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. All good. all good songs, and lyrically, some really good storytelling in there for rock, and I mean, yeah. I'm going brain dead for names right now. Lead singer is. Do you know the lead singer Aerosmith's name?
Steven Tyler?
Steven Tyler. God, I'm just brain dead today. I keep wanting to say.
I got distracted by the camera beeping. Was that the camera?
Yeah. Should you check the battery on that bad boy?
Yeah, just keep talking.
Okay. So he's going to check the battery. I'm going to keep talking. Steven Tyler. Why I couldn't remember that. It's a rough day. But his vocal. Talk about like an instrument expressing emotion. His vocals did in so many different ways. How we doing?
Did we press record on this?
Pretty sure, yeah. Is it not recording? So we're back.
There was a slight technical difficulty.
Slight indeed.
The camera filled up with video and stopped recording.
Kinda like my brain.
Kind of like my brain.
Trying to pull up people's names.
Yeah. Oh, of course, it's...
Steven Tyler.
Dude.
All right, so back to Steven Tyler.
Yep.
Amazing vocalist. The emotions come through.
A lot of energy.
A lot of energy. And Big Ones was one of mine.
Big energy.
Big energy.
Big ones.
Big one. Plural. All right, go.
Let's not touch on that anymore.
Yeah.
So, where was I? Number 8, Absolution. We should probably pick this up a little bit, pace-wise. But, number 8, Absolution by Muse. There's not a whole lot to that, except that I was discovering new facets of rock at the time. And Muse strikes a really cool balance between, like, operatic and rock. And Hysteria, which is this beautiful song by them. Amazing. I think it's one of their best songs, if not their best. It's on that album, I believe. If it's not, then I chose the wrong album. Because in my mind, I was choosing the one with Hysteria on it.
We'll strike you down later.
Yeah, huge fan of that album. Hugely influential. Yeah, it's a great album. Check it out.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to go with Garth Brooks, No Fences, country album.
What a guy.
What is happening now?
We flipped the script. We thought you understood, but then you didn't because you weren't paying attention.
Okay,
Oh, is that
so...
Sound effect. Yeah.
Okay, all right, moving on.
Yeah.
So, nobody wants to stare at me, just... but it feels right.
Yeah, it does feel right.
I can't stop. Okay, so interesting thing with this is, so I'm 3-4 years old. We got Grease, La Bamba soundtracks, right? And then, I don't remember, 7, 9, somewhere in there, Thriller and Bad. And then Garth Brooks is kind of like right in the middle.
Right.
I can't remember exactly how old I was, but the song was The Thunder Rolls by Garth Brooks, you know, one of his most popular songs, I'd say. Very moody. Love the guitar work in that song, the music, and again, it's deep. I've always been fascinated with deep music and lyricism, minor keys. I still have a hard time writing outside of minor keys.
Same.
Yeah. So, yeah. And that brought me to No Fences. A lot of good tracks. That's got Friends in Low Places on it. And yeah. So, Garth Brooks, No Fences.
It came in at just the perfect time.
Yeah.
Let me check my list here.
Came in like a wrecking ball. That's
all right, so let me just
next.
kill myself really quick, and then, okay, we're back.
That's next on my list.
Is it really? You're scaring me.
I should have stayed with it longer.
You should have.
Oh, I couldn't help myself.
7, Come Clarity by In Flames. Again, In Flames is the band that coined the term melodic death metal. I was just getting into metal in general, and there's no denying that album is iconic. The song "Take This Life," which I believe is track 1 on that album, is like a death metal anthem. Take This Life. Anyway, yeah. So that was a great album to me because a lot of the vocals on it were really haphazard. Like they weren't like super well produced, but it was still melodic. But it just felt very raw, like he was just doing it. Like he did it one time, and that was the time that they used. And it wasn't, they didn't spend a ton of time on it. They just moved on. And it has this really cool feel to it. The clean vocals do. And then, of course, you know, his screamed vocals are legendary at this point. But, yeah, so In Flames, Come Clarity. It's great.
All right. Love it. Oh, man. Okay. Nirvana, Nevermind.
Oh, so which one is it then?
Nevermind.
Oh. Yeah, that was a bad joke.
Yeah. And the song In Bloom, still to this day, probably one of my favorite Nirvana songs. There's a lot of favorites, but... and I don't know. I mean, probably for the same reason that everybody really was compelled by Nirvana. It was just different, and different for the sake of like, this is me, and I don't really care what you think. I'm not really doing it for you. Oh, I didn't even really notice you were there watching.
It's like, oh, is there a crowd of people in this room right now?
Yeah, like I'm just here making this thing happen, and you came in. Oh, I didn't even notice you were here. Something very compelling about it. Very simple. Very simple.
Yeah.
I think they have, was it 3 or 4 member band maybe?
3, I think.
Yeah, I think it was just
4.
3.
I think they had 4 when they toured at some point.
Yeah, so just guitar, vocal, 2 guitars, vocals, and drums, right? Or a bass maybe?
Yeah, they had a bassist. So when they toured, they had 2 guitarists. But the lead vocalist played guitar.
Yeah.
And then
Kurt
there was a
Cobain.
bassist.
Yeah, I remember that name.
And Dave Grohl on drums.
That's right. Yeah, shout out to Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And them Crooked Vultures. Dave Grohl plays drums for them. I think they only have 1 album, but it's great.
Wow. Yeah, so that was huge. Again, that was another album I think I played. And honestly, still to this day, I still listen to Nirvana at times. Yeah, it's in my playlist, so huge.
Much hugely.
Much hugely. And that was, I don't know. I'm not doing this in any order, probably. That was close to actually the same time when, who knows? I don't remember.
Yeah, I tried to approximate in order with these in terms of like importance, but it's not exact. So
mine's not importance, time, or anything. I'm just letting you have them.
All right, number 6. This is more recent, but it's metalcore "Storm the Gates of Hell" by Demon Hunter. I would argue their best album, but it was also coincidentally the first album by them that I really got into. I think I had heard other albums by them, but that was the first one that I consistently listened to. And it's frenetic. Like, a lot of their earlier stuff is just super good. He does this thing where it's kind of like rapping, where there's a huge emphasis on, like, the rhythm of the way that he screams stuff that I think is super cool. And he kind of abandoned that as time went on, but... yeah, this was, I would say, the last album that really features that really rhythmic screamo. And I say screamo. I don't even know what that means. Screms. Screaming. The rhythmic screaming that he does so well. But, yeah, so this was one of the last albums they did in a higher tuning, which I actually prefer. But, yeah, so this album was instrumental to me in terms of activating different moods. Because at the time, when I was playing guitar, it was just death metal mood. And that was the only really thing that I could do. But they had more facets. And this is around the same time that I was discovering In Flames. So that was helpful too. But they were really good at, like, it's still metal. And I think technically it's metalcore, but who cares? It's still metal, it's still heavy, but they're somehow activating different vibes. And so that was when I started asking myself, like, how are they doing that? Like, what exactly is happening where it's still intense, just like the last track, but it has a completely different feel? It's not just in a different key. It's like it's completely different. And so exploring like how to pull out those weird changes, even though the songs are similar. You know, they have a similar vibe, but they still stand distinctly.
Yeah, like what's happened musically to make that feel.
Yeah, and
different.
I was really young. I was definitely like low teens. Shout out to the Every Time I Die album, Low Teens. But yeah, so that's number 6.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll introduce some hip hop.
Do it.
Bone Thugs and Harmony, Yeast 1999 Eternal.
Don't know it.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Huge.
Oh my God.
I don't even know where to start. I was maybe 14, 15. And that album took everybody, I think, hip hop fan wise, by storm, if not the whole industry. So I was just starting to get into hip hop, and
These guys were lighting it up.
they still do. I mean, that album still stands with the best. Before trap music got introduced, which is 5 years old maybe, mumble rap, whatever you want to call it. It's known by that triplet feel, right? So you got that slow beat, you got the snare on the 3, and then you got the really fast triplet hi-hat, and then they flow in a triplet feel, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So just word to everyone, and some of you guys know, but Bone Thugs has been doing that for long time.
Yeah.
And not only doing it like the best. Now, not necessarily with the mumble part, but that triplet flow, and they're actually saying stuff. And not that every trap song or musician doing trap music, hip hop artist is not saying anything. I'm not saying that, but there's a lot of trap hits, that the content of the lyrics are, whether you like it or not, they're not saying anything. If you go from your watch to the girl to your rims, all in one verse, like you're just, what I'm saying? There's no content really. And if I can't understand what you're saying half the time, because
So I think you just hit on something. I think you just hit on something that could be a whole podcast, but like this whole thing where it's like, yeah, my girl's a B word because she doesn't like whatever, and I've got to watch that. It's like worth so much money. It's like, what do the two have to do with each other?
Nothing is the answer.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
So I would love to kind of break down, like, I don't know, a typical track that does that and just kind of walk through it. But.
Oh, yeah, we could pick a handful of the songs that actually made this trap movement hugely popular, and dissect those. Panda would be a good one to start with. Anyway, moving on. Bone Thugs, Yeast 1999 Eternal, still to this day.
Is that a Thugs with a Z or Thugs with an S?
Good question. I think it's with an S. Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't even trying to play that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good question though.
Let's see, where was I? Mine are all out of order. I numbered them like right before we started.
Real quick, just to mention, people, I don't know how many people are familiar with Bone Thugs, okay? They don't just rap. They sing.
Oh.
Have you heard any Bone?
Nuh-uh.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Completely new to me.
So they don't just rap, they sing. And they sing well. And they sing while they rap. And they all have different voices, range-wise, right? So Busy Bone, he's like the higher range guy. And they can spit quick. You can understand them. And then Crazy Bone, he's got like a low tenor probably, or baritone maybe even. But and he sings and rap. Anyway, just together, and they're a four-person crew.
Yep.
At least they used to be back in the day. Sorry.
Are they still doing stuff?
Yeah. I mean, the Crazy Bone and Busy, I think maybe even all of them have had solo albums. But yeah, I heard Bone was just in Spokane at least a couple years ago. I don't know who that entails anymore. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure, I don't know how many of the original guys are a part of Bone Thugs, but
Well, I think what happened with Under Oath was every single founding member left the band at some point.
Oh.
And so by the time they got to, I think, Define the Great Line, every founding member had switched out.
That's an interesting. Define the Great Line. None of us are original.
Yeah, I could be wrong on what album that was, but I know that happened at some point. Down to my number 5, I think. Yeah. So this one's a little bit embarrassing for me. I don't know if I should be embarrassed by it, but I am a little bit. Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. The emo anthem of the world. But yeah, just a great concept album. Some classic tracks on it. What was that? Frick. I don't remember. There's one, The Teenagers Scare the Living Ish Out of Me. I don't remember what that song is called. I think it might just be called Teenagers, but that song is fantastic. Yeah, but it's a great album. There's nary a dud on that album. Very good. They kind of their album before that I think is really underrated. That's when they kind of activated the more rocky elements. Like it was really punk before that. But there's just frenetic punk rock thing that they were doing. But there was a ton of melody. Like it wasn't like for instance Blink. They had a lot of melody, but it was definitely more pop. And
right.
then My Chemical Romance went more rock. And it was still really poppy. But
you liked it anyway.
Yeah, it was very progressive. Like Blink-182 is not, but yeah, MCR, Black Parade, it's pretty good.
Nice. You loved it. It's top 10.
Yeah, it is top 10.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, it's great. Yeah. I still listen to it sometimes. Yeah. I'm not ashamed. Get out of my business.
There you go.
I don't care.
We're inviting you into his business, and we don't care what you think. But you're in my business too. So let's go with Tupac. All Eyes on Me.
Boom.
He's done a lot, so that still today is probably my favorite album he ever did. And that just, again, that probably sucked me into more of lyrically what you could do with hip-hop and how real and honest and just, not all of it, there's definitely going back. There's definitely tracks that are just, glorifying that street life. But I feel like when I was introduced to Pac, there was... Now when I go back, you have to sort through. He definitely had tracks that was like kind of uplifting the, abusing women and making money and drugs and all that. But if you sort through to some of his really honest writing, he was very honest, about how he grew up, how he felt. He had ideas, about politics and about, blacks being treated poorly and underprivileged areas, all these different kind of things. He was a mind that was expressing itself. So just lyrically very compelling. And I was writing at the time a lot, poetry and stuff, and so that kind of was a huge inspiration to me on like how I could express my thoughts and myself and process through writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is this with a Z? The Eyes? Was that with a Z?
Yes, I believe Eyes was with a Z.
I knew we'd get one. Where was I? All right, number 4. Going back earlier, Rust in Peace / Peace Cells, because I discovered both albums at the same time, essentially. Peace Cells was Megadeth's second album, I believe, and Rust in Peace was their fourth. Those are probably my 2 favorite albums by them. There's just, again, something that's so frenetic about it. Kind of the backstory is he gets kicked out of Metallica. They didn't even tell him he was kicked out. They just left him at a train station. And they stole a bunch of his riffs. And so they used his riffs in their earlier albums. And this is pretty well known. I'm not trying to get sucked into the Metallica versus Megadeth debate at this moment, but
so wait, back up now.
Yeah.
Someone got kicked out of Metallica?
Yes, the founding member of Megadeth.
Okay, did not know.
Yeah, so he wrote some of their classic riffs, like Four Horsemen, and embittered that they were still using his riffs, he played them faster, wrote new lyrics over them, and they became album 1 and some of album 2. So a lot of Metallica riffs, he plays like 20 BPM faster, and he's like, suck it. So that was kind of the advent of like that really fast thrash metal. It was like right when it was booming. So it hit the market at just the right time. And obviously this is before me. This is like 10 years before me, but before I was born. So I probably picked those albums up at least 20 years after they came out, but I loved them. Yeah, so...
And a lot of the other people on your list probably wouldn't be there had it not been for Megadeth.
Yeah, the 4 original... I don't want to say original metal bands because they weren't the 4 original metal bands, but the big 4 in that thrash metal period really shaped metal as a whole for the next.
Who was the other ones? Like Pantera? Were they one of them?
No.
That was probably later.
Yes. So it was Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer. Those were the 4 big.
Interesting. I don't even really consider Metallica metal. But I
well,
guess
they used to be a lot heavier. And it depends like what era of Metallica you came in on, because by the time you get to like Black Album, it's pretty rock. It's pretty arena rock. It's not as aggressive as it was.
But there was a day.
There was a day, yeah. I think Injustice for All was probably Metallica's last true metal album. But having said that, I don't really listen to Metallica a ton, so I don't know much of their stuff post Black Album. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So that was my number, whatever I said 4.
Yeah, that's great, awesome. Incubus, Make Yourself, which is very strange. Are you familiar with Incubus at all?
A little bit. Did you know that in Incubus, they didn't know this when they named their band, but an incubus is the opposite of a succubus. So a succubus is like, I'm going to seduce you. An incubus sneaks into your room at night and rapes you.
Yeah, and it's a spirit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they didn't know that. So they called the band Incubus, and then somebody's like, did you know that's actually a spirit that will rape you? And then they were like, oh.
I didn't know they didn't
Too
know
late.
that.
Yeah.
I actually just found out what an incubus was like a couple years ago.
Oh, really?
And I was like, ew.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
Yeah. But the band,
Yeah.
Incubus, not the spirit that comes and rapes you.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. So anyway, the band, they came out with an album. I'm not sure what year that was. Make Yourself. It was a concept album for sure. Very, very melodic rock, but melodic, and a lot of tempo, a lot of different tempo stuff, even within the songs. A lot of dropouts, just very moody, and like take you from one place to another place through several fun little stages, all in one song. You know, not all the songs were like that, and then the whole album as a whole, took you on a journey, and so I just really enjoyed that. I like the lead singer's vocal. It was super great. Lead guitar wise, they had a lot of effects that sounded like almost like whales in an ocean. A lot of almost cinematic elements to the way they brought the music, and what else? They have a DJ on that album. They have a DJ. So there's some other cool stuff with it, like a backbeat, although they have like a live drummer and all that, backbeat and some scratching and just some things you wouldn't expect to be in a sound like that. And so that was huge. That's another album I played.
Yeah, a lot of these albums are albums that at the time I thought were very strange, and so they stood out to me.
Yeah.
And that's basically how they made the list. Number 3, we've got a surprise entry. Broken Boy Soldiers. I've actually referenced this album before, but it was Raconteur's debut album. I think it's definitely one of my favorite albums as well. Not a lot of these also make my top 10 favorite, but that one definitely would. Super tight album. All the songs are very different. They do a lot of weird stuff. Like one of the tracks they tune halfway between E and E flat.
So that would be like a quarter step.
Yeah. So that's just weird. Like weird stuff like that. They were like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So that's cool. What else is there to say about it? I just like Jack White.
Yeah.
This is the second. I actually took off. I had another Jack White album on here, and I was like, can't. Oh yeah, that was Whorehound. Yeah, that was one of the honorable mentions. Yeah. But yeah, it's a really great rock album. Again, it came into my life at a time when metal was pretty much the only thing I listened to. I had graduated from progressive rock to metal, so the Yes albums I referenced earlier were part of that repertoire. And then someone introduced me to Megadeth, and then that's how I kind of went on that train. But
wow. Okay, this is the last on my list, which might shock you because I started by saying 2, and I went first. So you probably have 2 or 3 left.
I have 2 left.
Yeah, see that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I shared 2 at the beginning, and you're gonna share 2 at the end.
Boom.
Works out great.
Yeah.
15 on my list. Eminem, the Slim Shady LP.
Oh.
And this was a surprise to me. Even I think I was 15, and I was writing hip hop at this time. Had dived into the world of hip hop, and watched a lot of MTV at the time. And there was this song, My name is Jigga Jigga Slim Shady. Hated the song.
Yeah.
Saw it on MTV. I was like, this white guy is the most annoying dude I've ever seen.
Yep.
I hope I never hear another one of his songs ever again in my life.
You're not the only one who's thought that.
Yeah, and he went by Eminem, and he had this alter ego, Slim Shady, and that was all in this song, and it was the stupidest. Even still to this day, that song is so dumb. And a friend of mine, Wiggins, we used to cruise around in his 4Runner and go 4-bying all in the back hills of the Cascade Mountains up here in the Northwest. Shout out. We love it. Living in the crown of God's beauty. One day he had this album in, and I heard this hip-hop artist rapping, and I was like, what is this? I don't even think I asked him. I was just listening, and then another track went by, and I was like, what? And then like the third song, I'm like, who is this? And he's like, this is Eminem. And I was like, no way. No way. This is not that goofy white dude that has that track on MTV, My Name Is. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's number 3. And he played the track, and I'm like, change it. But the rest of the album was just like, what is this guy doing? How can he do it? What is happening here?
Yeah.
It was a magical thing. And I had a really hard time because I detested that song so much. When I heard the rest of the album, I was like, this guy can't be doing this.
Yeah.
And so that messed me up. That messed me up. Like, I listened to that album. That influenced me hugely in my writing, hip hop, and having fun with the artistical approach. Like, his personality rings through in how he writes and presents the lyrics, and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a freestyle. And on that album especially, it was almost like a lot of like almost just taking his freestyle concepts and, going off on them and making these really comical scenarios, but the delivery just like second to none. And that was the beginning of us getting to watch one of the greatest MCs of all time.
Boom.
Eminem, not that I agree or listen to a lot of what he writes, or like a lot of the content. As far as MCs go, one of the best of all time.
Mm. Speaking of MCs, Beastie Boys. Not musically hugely influential on me, but there's no denying the draw of the Beastie Boys.
No, that's not on your list.
No.
Okay.
So I've got 2 left. Neither of which will be surprising to anyone. Number 2 is actually a 2 for 1, so technically there's 3 left, but who cares? 2 for 1. Leftoverture and Point of No Return by Kansas. These were the 2 albums I listened to the most by them. Progressive rock at its finest. It has more character. It has more... They have not more musical ability from a technical perspective, because a lot of those prog rock bands had a ton of technical ability. But they just throw you for a loop. Like, violin solo? Who gives a crap? Let's do it. You know? Harpsichord solo? Why the frick not? You're going to stop me? No way, man. And they were huge back in the day. Before I was born, by like a long time. But, yeah, Kansas is great. I love them. Those were the first 2 albums, actually, that I ever put in a CD player and listened to. On purpose. So, yeah. Huge. And now when I listen to them, it's like I never stopped. It's crazy because I listen to those albums so many times. But if I put them in, I can predict every note because I listened to them so many times as a kid that I don't even have to have heard it for like years. Right. And it just comes right back.
It's ingrained in you.
Yeah, which is insane. And then my number 1, again, not going to be a surprise. My number 1, To Find the Great Line, the first concept album I ever listened to. Under Oath, obviously, I referenced this album a little bit ago. Yeah, it's hard to describe what exactly drew me to this. It has this frenetic energy. The drummer is one of, if not my favorite drummer. I've never heard a drummer do what he does. Again, it's not even a technical ability thing. There's just something about the way that he plays that's just so powerful, and it meshes so well with what everyone else is doing, but it also stands out on its own. And that's a great thing to have as a drummer. It's a great thing to have as a band. Their guitarist doesn't know a lick of music theory. He's just like, oh, this sounds pretty good, and then he would play it. And the way they wrote this album, if I recall correctly, they like rented a house for like 6 months, and they all lived there and wrote the album while they were living there. And I don't know if they recorded it at the same time or if they did that just after they wrote it. I don't remember. But you can just hear the conflict, like, because they were in constant conflict with each other over everything. And it comes through, and there's a lot of emotion, and they can do these really intense, basically end a song on this breakdown. They drop into halftime, they just friggin' rock out, do a fade out, drifts into this ethereal 5-minute ballad with 2 competing lead guitar lines. And it just works, and it's just so strange, and it came out at the right time. It's like this blend of punk and metal, and I don't even know what. But yeah, and so I would say that my band doesn't sound anything like Under Oath, but I would say that in terms of like the amount
philosophy,
the philosophy behind maybe just the approach, to songs and stuff. Definitely hugely influential. So that's why it's my numero uno, even though Lost in the Sound of Separation is, I think, a better album. To Find the Great Line I heard first, therefore most impact. So
all right, you heard ours, top 10 most influential albums of our life. We'd love to hear some of your guys' posts, subscribe, follow, comment. What are some of the most influential albums and why? We would love to hear. Yeah. Until next time, SoundMind, and we out.